Hey there everybody, welcome to a new teaching video. This is Molly McCord and we're going to take a look at the Mars in Cancer transits that are starting through the middle of June 2019, and they're transpiring over a good week or so. And I wanted to give you some insights about these transits because they are significant in what we are moving through in the middle here of 2019. So Mars is moving through Cancer, and as of June 13th, Mars is at 18 degrees of Cancer and 19 minutes, and is basically going to have a conjunction with Mercury. Mercury is moving pretty fast, so Mercury will also be conjunct Mars around this middle of June period. So let's start by talking about the Cancer energy. Cancer is a feminine energy, a water sign. It is our first emotional feelings. Cancer is the first water signs. It creates the first imprint of what we feel based on childhood, based on what we learned through our childhood experiences, often related to the family environment. Cancer is connected with the family where you grew up, your family of origin, also your genealogy and lineage, and it's also directly connected to the mother. So what we have is this energy of emotional expression that has probably been unconscious. And I'm talking about this in general terms, so understand that this may resonate more for some people than for others. But I want to lay of the land here for this Cancer energy of what's happening and how we can consciously work with it. Because as the planets move through the sign of Cancer, it triggers our emotional body. And it can trigger the energies we've been holding around how we feel, around how we trust ourselves, around vulnerability, around how we feel safe to express our feelings. It's connected with how we honor the truth of our feelings, and it can bring up energies from childhood that you didn't know you were still carrying or holding. It can reveal to you more energies that perhaps you even took on while in your mother's womb, because that womb is where we're also, as energy beings, receiving emotions. As your mother had you in her womb through her pregnancy, she was obviously an emotional being and was feeling many things. So we can unconsciously be holding some of our mother's energies. And of course, she gets her energy from her mother, and so on and so on. So this can show up as something in the family lineage. Now, this is important because collectively, this Mars in Cancer transit is very big, as not only there is a quick conjunction with Mercury, which brings up the words, the thoughts, the communications of the energy, but we have Mars conjunct the North Node while also opposing Saturn at 19 degrees of Capricorn retrograde, Pluto 22 degrees of Capricorn retrograde, and then also right in here we have the South Node in Capricorn. So you can see that this is a lot of energy through the middle of June. Mars is a trigger planet. Mars comes through and activates what was dormant, what was not expressed, and it can show up as anger. It can show up as a strong feeling, a strong urge. It can come through as a very powerful reaction. And it's interesting because this reaction can come from something that isn't in the present moment. Again, going back to childhood, to your mother, to how you were raised, to an emotional imprint that you felt when you were younger, it's triggering a part of you from a different era, even. And when you're conscious of that, when you're aware of what's being triggered, you can use it in a productive manner. So this energy is going to be working with the North Node. And there's a sense here that we're meant to be set free from something we've been carrying in our emotional body. Now, that can show up in so many ways. It can be through conscious energy work, through tears and crying, or a painful experience, something that hurts your feelings, something around a vulnerability or a part of yourself you've repressed. And you're meant to let it out, because the triggering of Mars says, basically, you don't have to carry this in your body. And Mars is the physical body. So there's this release here when Mars conjuncts the North Node, and the North Node is what we're learning. We're learning through our feelings. We're learning through our emotions. We're learning how to trust ourselves and to go inside for answers. And so this trigger of Mars can also bring up anger. And it can show up as anger towards other people. It can show up as anger towards yourself. And either way, there's a gentleness that's required. And that gentleness is supported by this trine to Neptune at 18 degrees of Pisces direct. And this is saying, please surrender your ego, Mars, your worries, your anxiety, your deep emotions to the higher powers that you identify with. Be that God, universe, source, spirit, angels, whatever it is for you. Because this Neptune is supporting the healing and cleansing of this Mars here. And it's supporting it in a way that is meant to let something go. Surrender the feelings, surrender the fears, surrender what you've been holding or what you've been carrying for the family. This can also be an activation of the mother wound. The wounds, again, that we unconsciously hold from our mother. Our mother is our first relationship. It's our first primary relationship. And yes, there are wonderful mother relationships and there are difficult mother relationships. They run the full spectrum. This is an understanding that with the support of Neptune and Pisces, your mother has always done the best she could. And that if you can forgive and see her through the eyes of spirit, it will bring you greater peace. It will remind you of your own spiritual power, your spiritual journey. And again, to not carry the feelings or intensities any longer, but allow them to flow. That's what the water signs do, is allow them to flow. And then as Mercury comes through and makes this conjunction to Mars and the North Node, you will want to express it. You will want to write it out. You will want to say something. You may want to practice Ho'oponopono. You might want to write a letter that you never send. You might want to release yourself verbally or in written form of this part of your story, these feelings. It's a very feeling-oriented energy. So allow yourself to go there. Trust yourself to go there. Mercury moves fast, so it will make the conjunction to Mars and the North Node and then move on. And then Mercury will trine Neptune, which will connect something in your mind about the bigger story. And even more about your mother or mother figure's soul journey and the soul connection between the two of you in this lifetime. So there's deep healing with this Mars, the potential. Now remember, it can show up as anger and frustration and a strong reaction. This can be very defensive, this Mars. And Mars in Cancer can be fighting something from the past. That is one of the lower forms of the energy, is that it can circle in the past and spin in where the ego perceived something was done wrong, or I wasn't heard, or they didn't respect me. I mean, it can spin in that stuff. And you're being asked to surrender it and look for the higher picture about what you're learning about your emotional needs. Again, this is the Cancer water sign is a personal emotional experience. It's your personal feelings. and what they are showing you. So as if that isn't enough excitement, what we also have that's bigger is how this Mars, as I said, is opposing Saturn and Pluto, both in Capricorn. And for the ways that this Mars wants to react and is subjective, very subjective, and it feels very personal. Capricorn doesn't take it personal. Capricorn sees it as part of life, part of growing up, part of being an adult, part of taking responsibility. And this Capricorn energy, as we know, is very strong into next year. So Mars comes through, it opposes Saturn at 19 degrees, and then a few days later, it opposes Pluto at 22 degrees. These are both retrograde, okay? So these are both internal energies right now, how we are each individually and collectively looking at how we carry the higher forms of Capricorn energies in our lives, how we are in charge of our lives and honoring our adult choices, our personal mastery, and feeling strong enough to do it on our own. But things have to change, and that's, of course, the Pluto deep transformation of what's changing internally around our sense of power, as this Saturn is looking for those changes to be evident in the real world. So we're all doing a lot of work right here in the Capricorn areas of our charts. So then this Mars comes along and triggers this, and what it could feel like again is that you're like, I've got my stuff together, I'm doing this work, I'm really focusing, and then it can feel like a tantrum or something happens that again ignites or triggers things that were dormant within you. This is a contentious energy. This is tension. There's a very little comfort here. Okay, so this is important to be aware of because there's something that needs to move with this opposition. There's something within you, which is your adult self and your child self, that need to have some type of meeting together and look at both sides of these energies. So again, this is where we're taking responsibility for our lives, and this is where we didn't realize we still had a pain or a hurt or something that needed to be released. And then you have this Neptune support system that's saying you can get through this if you step out of your mind and go higher, spiritually higher. That's where the solution is, because Neptune is also in the sextile with Saturn and Pluto. Even though Pluto and Neptune are 4 degrees apart, because Pluto is retrograde, I'm going to give it a 4-degree orb here and call it a supportive energy. So what we have is a very interesting dance between how we're evolving and growing spiritually, but the realities of our feelings and the realities of where our ego has felt slighted or hurt, left out, or not seen. This Mars triggering these energies within each of us, as well as the collective, is a cleansing of your emotional body, of your feelings, of the hurts that really you're not meant to carry anymore. And so if you can be brave and go into these vulnerabilities, it will pass and it will move out and it won't be as potent, because once we make it conscious, it doesn't work anymore in our unconscious, at least not as powerfully. Now, I mentioned how this is the mother energy, Cancer, and then Capricorn is the father energy, the father figure, the authority, the first father figure that models authority for us in our lives. And so this is the parental axis in astrology of where you understand how you are nurtured, and then your own responsibilities and how you are supported in going out in the world. These are the energies that are showing us what we've been learning within the family of origin, and then also perhaps your own family, if you have your own family and children and a partner right now. This can show up too as where the family priorities are shifting or changing. Part of this Mars energy is allowing us to release, again, where we need to let out something that we've been unknowingly carrying around the parental figures in our lives and around authority figures who maybe we didn't feel respected us, but to not stay in any reaction or feeling or anger for long, but to move also into these aspects of yourself that are your own adult, your own maturity, where you take responsibility for your life and you take responsibility for your spiritual growth, and you decide that I'm going to allow these feelings to make me better, and I'm going to require myself to stand stronger in what I need emotionally and my ability to take responsibility and give that to myself too. So there is a reworking here, a realignment in this Mars in Cancer transit that really triggers a lot in the current planets. Now, thinking ahead, this is also important to be aware of because the Sun will reach these same oppositions to Saturn in Pluto in about a month, in mid-July, which is also eclipse season. So there's energies in June that are opening up eclipse energies. And the first eclipse is actually at 10 degrees of Cancer. And it's a Cancer new moon solar eclipse. So again, this Mars energy is triggering what we're healing. It's triggering the emotional body, family wounds, the mother wound, childhood, where we feel safe within ourselves, our ability to express ourselves authentically and honestly, and how we are allowing ourselves to experience all of our energy fields. So it's quite a big time astrologically as we move through the middle of June, and then we have the first eclipse on July 2nd and the second eclipse on July 16th. And I will be doing these charts for you on each of those as well. So I hope this has given you some good things to think about and chew on, to understand consciously, to work with it consciously, and to work with it in a way that flows, okay, that flows the energy out. And that's very important right now as we are meant to continually evolve and expand our consciousness around our energy, our power, and our choices. Thank you for joining me, and you'll find out more about me and my offerings below this video. I so appreciate your likes, subscribes, shares, and comments, and I'll see you back here soon with another video.